welcome to the session. This is live. Everyone be warned, we're not scripted. We will make mistakes. There will be hiccups because this is the nature of live. But we're really, really excited to introduce to you some great people here. But before I get started, it's really important to note this is a meet. You do have the ability to unmute, I think. If not, we will mute you. And you do have the ability to put your hands up and chat. But we really strongly and would love for you to put your questions in the activity section of Meet in the Q&A. We will ignore any questions in chat, and we will only focus on questions in the Q&A at the end. So I will kindly put a reminder in chat if you have put a question in chat to put it into the Q&A. If you don't know where that is, have a play just now. At the bottom, there's some shapes on the right-hand side. Exactly, someone said here, there's a question, that's exactly it. So the activity section, and then click the Q&A, and you'll be able to ask your questions there. Read the questions, maybe someone else has already asked the question, and thumbs up, so we can see how many people have that question. Good, now we've done the rules of engagement, we can get to the fun stuff. So welcome to Google AI in Workspace, where I think we can do a small round of introductions here. So I'm very pleased to introduce Kieran from Ocado Retail. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Oh, there we go. I'm glad someone else is controlling the slides.
Cool. Welcome everybody. Hi there. My name's Kieran Johnson. I'm the head of IT at Ocado Retail. And I'm really looking forward to talking a bit about Google AI in Google Workspace today. And give a little bit of a sort of introduction about where I come from and what we're doing with Google. Ocado, if you don't know, is the UK's biggest online-only grocery store. So we serve over 500,000 orders per week. We have roughly about 1 million active customers, a bit more than 1 million active customers. And we have a product assortment of close to 50,000 products. We have a very sort of technology focused or forward sort of solution to doing online grocery. We have very smart warehouses with robots and clever stuff. And so technology and AI and machine learning has always been part of what we do. We use machine learning solutions for our van routing, for this sort of traveling salesman problem. We do predictive maintenance on our bots and customer personalization and stuff like that. So it's always been something that's part of our sort of DNA, I suppose, about how we operate as a business. But we owe it to our customers as well, though, to try and make sure that we're efficient across all of our operation, and not just in sort of our logistics, but also in what we do in head office. And we thought that using AI tools within the workspace would be one way of making us more efficient and helping us keep costs down. So that's where we were coming from, and I'll now hand over to Simon.
Thanks, Kieran. So hi, I'm Simon Rizala. I'm the Group Learning Director from Devoteam. We're a AI-driven tech consulting company, around 11,000 people across EMEA and the Middle East. And really, we have a focus on tech for people and AI for good. So as a consulting company, we are there to help all other companies, especially with tech, as our strength is tech DNA. But my job is specifically to make sure that we look after, upskill, reskill, and make sure that our 11,000 employees are trained on the most relevant tech-related topics. So in this instance, customer, we went to our internal G-Cloud team, which is Simone, Pablo, and others, and said, well, actually, please treat us like a customer because we have a real need here. People services company, our assets are our people are our stars, and this really was a massive initiative set by our board to make sure that we invest and train in the right tools and in the right adoption to get the best ROI from whatever we do AI related. So be pleased to share a bit about what we do, and some of it will be what we do for our customers, as Kieran's saying, but actually in this instance, the story I'll be telling you is about our internal experience in training up our 11,000 people and how we've adopted it internally within our organization. So back to you, Pablo.
Well, actually, if I can ask Simone to do a quick intro, and then I'll carry on.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. Simone French is my name. I'm the EMEA Work Transformation Tribe Lead at DevTeam G Cloud, but I also head up the Workspace practice here in the Nordics. And I work with customers like Ocado and also DevTeam, helping them to optimize their usage of the Workspace tools. So over to you, Pablo.
Great, thank you very much for the intro, guys. That's great. And who am I? Why am I speaking here? So I think I recognize some faces here, some of the customers I work with. So I head up the AI and innovation in the UK, but on a EMEA level, I also take care of many customers from a post-go live perspective, so life after go live, as we like to call it. So how do you take advantage of your Google Workspace tools and AI tools once you have deployed them? So it's actually lovely to be here and lovely to see so many familiar faces as well. So what we'll do is I'll really quickly iterate some of the rules and engagements, and then I'll explain what we're going to do and how we're going to do this. So firstly, I know I said this earlier, just to reiterate, use emojis. We'd love to see your reactions. Give us an emoji if you can grab them. Perfect. There's a few people there. Keep your cameras on. If you have lovely faces and backgrounds you can share, please do turn them on. It was lovely to see faces and reactions of people's faces when we say things. Ask questions, where I mentioned before, in the activity section, and raise your hands during the Q&A. If we have a question that you've asked, you want to clarify, then you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. But please keep your microphones muted. If I had a penny for every time someone accidentally unmuted and started talking to their wife next to them or something like that, I would be a rich person. So let's avoid those distractions, please. And I don't want to hear you mumbling by accident. It happens. And just be mindful about the time that we have for questions. So please definitely use the thumbs up if there's a question that you are interested in, rather than asking multiple of the same. Good. If we keep to those rules, it should be pretty fluid and smooth, I hope. What we'll do today is we're going to discuss and we'll ask questions to Simone and Kieran and Simon. What is the expectation versus reality of what they've experienced in AI in their businesses? How we've measured ROI and demonstrated value. This is going to be an interesting one. Successfully implementing Google AI as well. What's the definition of success? How do we do that? The ethics and security, responsibility, impact on the productivity, overcoming some challenges. There's always challenges in technology, and how DevTeam adoption program works, and then a favorite AI feature. So that's generally how we want to stick to the agenda today. We will go off piste because it's not like scripted. This is live, like I said before. But in that case, I think we can head over to Simone, who can take us to our first questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. And the live Q&A again, don't forget, if you have any questions, just to pop them into the Q&A and upvote, right? So you might have the same question as somebody else. Check first, and then you can upvote, thumbs up. So we know that, when we come to the Q&A later on, we'll ask that question first. But again, welcome everyone, and a special warm welcome to our guests, Kieran and Simon. We're thrilled to have you join us today for this Google AI in Workspace Roundtable event. So I'm going to just kind of dive in. Well, it'll be very, I think, agile with sharing experiences here. But again, I'm really interested to hear from both you, Kieran and Simon, in terms of the adoption journey you've done in your organizations. So what were your initial expectations regarding, I would say, the integration of, well, we call it Google AI now, or Gemini, within your Google Workspace environment? And I'd also be interested to hear if you've already been running some AI initiatives earlier in your organization as well. Maybe, Kieran, I'll direct the question to you first on.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Our first experience with Google AI was actually when it wasn't even Gemini AI, it was like Duet AI, I think. It was very early in the sort of alpha stages, and this was, not that many months after the sort of ChatGPT had broken over all of us, and created the hype that is what we see now. And we were getting, I suppose, not surprisingly, quite a lot of questions across especially from our C-level leadership team, like, what did this mean for us? Was it something to be scared of? Should we be worried? Should we be using it? Is it going to be an advantage for us at some point? So there was lots of sort of, and nobody really knew. We're really early stages of the hype cycle. But what we did know is that we wanted to be doing something. It was very clear that we needed to be doing something. So we signed up very early for the Duet AI trial, the alpha trial. And actually that experience was sort of mixed, I'd say. And it was very, very limited. We were only limited to 50 users because it was like an alpha thing. And we have an organization, our head office organization, of around 600, I guess. And so there's only we only got inroads into a few different areas. And also I think I'll be honest, that the capabilities at that time were quite limited. So you might get like the help me write thing, but we didn't have access to gemini.google.com. So there was no kind of like chat client to talk to and so on. And so that initial sort of thing wasn't great. But what we did see, though, as we went through like 2024, is that the speed of change in Google Workspace was really becoming quite apparent. Like there was so many more capabilities being rolled out, and we realized actually this is worth trying again. And in between, before we did try again, we also were quite a big user of Slack as well. We did love Slack in Ocado, but and we had trialed Slack AI for a month in August. And through that trial, and that went out to everybody in the business. And then when we had to turn it off at the end of the sort of 1 month trial, there was kind of a lot of cries of pain from like, oh, people were really beginning to get the idea of like how AI could really help them in summarizing stuff, help them be a bit more productive. And so we knew that the demand was there. So we were kind of getting ready. That kind of gave us the impetus we needed to think, okay, actually, it's the right time for us to start working on these tools and do it, have another go. And so that's kind of like how we went ahead with this. What we did realize also from having done those sort of the Slack AI trial and the earlier trial with Duet AI was that it needed to be a bit more structured. And so we went for we worked with Deborah team really closely to sort of come up with a sort of adoption program. And I know this might sound a bit salesy, but it was a really good adoption program. It worked really well. It went for 6 weeks, and it just helped us sort of embrace sort of the enthusiasm that already exists for AI, which I might talk about later. The enthusiasm exists for AI, how to nurture that, how to get people aware of what features are coming, give them some advice about how they can use the tool, and then slowly get them to actively participate in it a little bit rather than sort of be passive sort of absorbers of new stuff. And that really made quite a big difference to us.
Maybe a follow-up question there as well. How long have you been using AI now, let's say in Google Workspace? Because I guess you were one of the early adopters. Maybe was it 2023 you started the journey, or 2020?
That's right, yeah. I think we turned on Duet AI, back at the end of 2023. I can't remember exactly what month it was. But the usage rates were, when the reports did become available, our daily usage rates were, out of the 50 people who probably had access, we may have had like 3 daily usages. It was really low. And so it wasn't, whereas, and I'll talk later about what the usage rate looks like now on Gemini, how we're using Gemini, and it's very different. And then, so we used it all through last year, but the adoption, this switching on Gemini across all of Google Workspace and doing the full sort of beams. So we did it with, we get gemini.google.com, we have access to Notebook LM, and lots of other great tools. And that we started from October last year.
Okay. And Simon, also within Devo team, I mean, we also, being a consulting company, we also started the journey quite early. But
we did, but we had a slightly different challenge. We had 10,000 plus consultants going, we're a tech consulting company, where are our tools? And the obvious one, the one that was in everyone's mind, was ChatGPT and that functionality. And we're there going, we're not quite sure if that's the right tool for us. So as a business, we felt slow, because there was a real want for it. Other companies were doing it, and we were there going, we're not going to press the button until we really understand what is the right tool for us and how we're going to use it, measure it, and get an ROI. But by doing so and not going directly there and succumbing to the pressure, there's a bit of shadow IT and people using it. So at the end of 2023, we did look at a pilot of around 300 users for the Duet AI or the Gemini. But the challenge was the product was a lot less mature than it is today. So you've got 300 people who were, some of them not bothered, some of them going, oh, it doesn't do what I need. So I'm not okay, I won't try it again. It's not as good as everyone's saying. And then the people who really went, actually, let's figure out how to use this to benefit my daily job. So we kind of went through a number of feedback loops there. And then we got to a point of going, it's not about the ChatGPT equivalent, the LLM there. It's more about a new way of working and how do we embed this capability into everything we're doing. And I think that was a bit of a reality check to go, we're not just looking for that additional tool that you can go in and type your prompt and get an answer. You're like, no, you want to embed it. You want those connections, that ecosystem, that if you do something on chat, it's going to look in Drive. If you do something on slides, it's going to pick up from other parts of your workspace. And when we looked at that, we said, well, we are a Google house. We do have Microsoft and there's other parts, but the majority is Google, and that's where our investment is going to be. So we started off doing a program for around 5,000 people. And we actually didn't give people the capability. We said, you actually have to undertake a training program. It's around 5 hours long. It consists on things like ethical training, policies, Gemini itself, as well as personalized paths based on your capability. So this could be being a leader, a developer, something else. On completion, we would give them a license. Now, that was around July last year, and the success we're seeing, we've recently opened up Gemini for everyone. So we still expect the training to be completed, but actually we've recently opened up to the whole population and really working on how do we embed that in our new ways of working. But definitely some challenges along the path, and that is learning as we go along.
Yeah, and you talked about some of the challenges. I also want to touch on another aspect, was you talked about embedding the knowledge. And then, I mean, maybe, in terms of, I don't know if you have any kind of statistics around, the uptake and the usage. Do you see any roles, for example, where, this is being particularly valuable for users in the organization?
So the uptake wasn't as quick as we were expecting. So we thought if you open this up to everyone will jump on it. But they're so, everyone's got their ways of working. Everyone's already embedded in their existing tool sets and what have you. So we realized as part of that, we really need to make sure that people understand how it can be useful for them. And also we realized that you need to do it in a way that relates to what they do on a day-to-day basis. So we've very much gone down the line of trying to, be persona-led and go, actually, what do you do in your daily job and how can you build these new capabilities in? And we're finding that if you take people like the developers, data people, they're very much jumping on this. Yep, there's various roles which are all over this because they're very tech savvy and they've picked it up. Then we had sales and leaders, and they were very much on the case of, I really need this, but I don't have time. So we had to educate them on the basis of, by investing the time to learn and build the capability, you will actually get a lot of time back. In theory, could be 30, 40%. But changing that mindset and really finding that initial period and creating the aha moment is not easy. And that is part of the adoption where you really have to make time to realize that this is a shift. But once people have got it, we feel that mindset sticks and they continue learning. So I think the sales and leaders is the one where we're really focused on now, but others have really just adopted quite quickly, and we learn from them.
So Simon, on that actually, I've got a little bit of a follow-up because I want to just go back to what Kieran said earlier as well. You mentioned that the option wasn't fast as you expected, and actually, Kieran, you mentioned that when you had that first alpha program, the stats came back very low. It was only about 3, did you say, people out of the 50?
Yeah, something like that.
So,
yeah.
what I'm really interested in is, and from Kieran, it'd be really interesting to hear, is what made you take the decision to go further into the AI journey with only that 3 people using the tool at the very beginning? Like, where did that decision happen, and how did that happen? Yeah.
Well, I think if you looked at the people that we had rolled it out to, it was quite a narrow assortment of personnel, and so that was clearly quite limiting for us, and we weren't really getting there was lots of other people who would get benefit from using the tool that we weren't able to roll it out to. So I think we'd kind of self-limited ourselves in one way. It was also the Slack AI trial gave us a little bit of confidence in that sense. Like, there's clearly a demand. We also, like someone mentioned, there's other tools available out there, and if you look at your sort of like firewall logs or your proxy server logs or whatever it is, you will see your employees are using these tools left, right, and center. They were using Read AI, they were using Grammarly, they're also using ChatGPT. That there's a whole bunch of tools out there that they want to get hold of, and so work is being done and being copied and pasted into emails, documents, slide presentations, and whatever. But that's been done by these other tools, and obviously that's not the best, safest way of like handling our sort of valuable company data. So what we wanted to do was kind of say, actually, look, we need to sort of have a little bit more control over this by focusing on one great product, and then limiting access, at least within the work environment, to these other tools. I'm sure that in at home people are probably still using ChatGPT left, right, and center, but it's but Gemini is clearly a tool that's going to be keep getting developed by Google, and it's going to be very powerful. I mean, obviously we're a Google Workspace shop as well. It makes a lot of sense for us to want to use Gemini AI. I think so I think to that step to go from to go from a very low usage and sort of not putting it was the Slack AI thing, the combination of conversations that we were having with Google at the time about licensing as well, that kind of helped influence us a little bit, and so on. So those things combined encouraged us to think, well, we could do this properly this time, and so that's what we started on in October.
Yeah. So what would you say has been the most valuable aspect then of implementing this within Ocado?
So actually, I'm going to just park the AI benefits just for a second, because those are really valuable and they're really useful as well. But when we did this adoption process, what it was quite apparent is that we weren't necessarily the world's greatest users of Google Workspace. I mean, unfortunately, I also have quite a large cohort of Office users, and there's no surprise that if people that we hire come to our company and they may never have used Google Workspace except perhaps Gmail for their personal email. And so they come in, and we hadn't up to that point really given them much of a sort of an induction into the world of Google Workspace, how to use it effectively. And actually, by what we found through this sort of adoption process is actually we're getting people more familiar with the core tool sets as well as with AI, and that's been a sort of unexpected benefit to some extent. And then as a consequence, we're now doing regular sort of monthly inductions for new staff, plus actually any existing staff who want to, they can then join these courses. I know, Pablo, I think you're involved in some of those.
When you said it, I was like, no, everyone does know how to use the tool. I train them.
Yes, exactly. But they do now. So they're learning now. Obviously, the one that always stands out, the favorite one, is when you do docs.new in the URL, and everyone goes, wow, you can do a new document just from the URL, and stuff like that. So it was those sort of capabilities that were there. So we found that actually through this adoption process, the benefits actually were more than just like, hey, there's great AI tools, and they have some really cool things that they can do. But there's actually we're learning how to use the products themselves, like Google Sheets and Docs and Slides, better than we were using them before.
Which is fantastic. Simon, go ahead.
I remember a conversation that I was having with Pablo, and it was, you'd have the expectation, the ROI, how do we make sure we get 20-30% productivity on this? And we started going through it, looking at the cases, and the reality was, we said, if we trained everyone properly just on Google Workspace, irrelevant of Gemini, I reckon we'd get our 20% if we use the ecosystem approach. The fact that everyone's working on the slides, the drive, on chat, then with it, and we said if we could do that, and then we add Gemini, then we're up for a double whammy. And it was just a real reality check that said, let's go back to the onboarding and let's see what we're training people on, because there's more efficiencies and benefits to be gained from this than just the Gemini training.
So is it fair to say that implementing or starting to implement AI has really shown some of the skeletons in the cupboard. Because I remember having this conversation with you, Simon. I was like, I wish we did onboarding training for our own business. I know we do it so well for other businesses.
I can say it's absolutely perfect now, Pablo. But the reality was there when we looked at it. It was actually, you know, we've got areas that we can improve without the investment, but actually then we can assess how do we accelerate on top. And that was the Gemini conversation ongoing. If we invest, what can we do on top of that? So it's changed quite a lot from those, I call it the aha moment of going, what's the real problem? The basics.
Yep.
But I think as you've shown, it's, you know, also the value of kind of this continuous investment in, you know, learning and kind of learning at the pace of change, because I mean, so much has happened, you know, not just in Google Workspace, but Gen AI in general over the last 12 months. It's happening at lightning speed. So I guess, you know, you've done the initial rollout now of Gemini or Google AI, Kieran and Simon. So what kind of ongoing, you know, or continuous learning or support are you doing now?
So when we did the adoption journey, I think we thought about this reasonably carefully, and I mean, hopefully not for too long, but we did give it some thought, and we realized that part of the onboarding process would be to you want to find your sort of like super champions, you know, that are going to really are massive, you know, really want the products as quickly as possible because they already can see the use cases for them. And so getting that cohort together and then just we followed that cohort through with a sort of special interest group in Slack, and so on. So there's lots of opportunities for people to share use cases about how they're using the products. In addition to that, we've got Pablo coming on every sort of 3 months, whatever, doing a bit of an update on what's coming down the line from Google, and that is actually really, really important because at the moment the pace of change is so great. It was actually one of the things that kind of slightly worried me about like the adoption was like you try and you get worried that you sort of train everybody up on or get them familiar with one thing, but actually the next 3 months there's going to be something else coming on, and then 3 months. But actually I think you can manage that, but you just have to manage it. But it's something that's going to come. You've got to be aware of it, and having your team basically give us a sort of insight into what's coming from Google, how we might, and then we can start preparing for that in advance. So we were sort of kind of getting things like deep research. Pablo's been talking about for about sort of 4 weeks, and we've then started like getting access to that and started using that ourselves. Notebook LM, we started using that. We started using that probably about 2 months ago, I suppose. I think it probably is now. And now I've literally I had a challenge. I had a problem this morning where we were really keen to share one of our notes on Notebook LM with our parent company, Ocado Group, but we couldn't do it, which was just a slight shame. But it's because they're not yet on Notebook LM. So we're finding really intuitive, you know, new uses for these things. It's fantastic, but it's just about being sort of plugged into the sort of to that stuff. If you're not, but otherwise these things are just going to come and they're just going to you'll be using Gmail one day and then something news just popped up in Gemini. You go, oh, I didn't know that was coming. So.
Yeah. And Simon, what about you? I know at Devateam, you know, we have a program, the Gen AI Learning Program. We also have Digital Champions.
This one is a real challenge because the roadmaps are moving so quickly, quicker than I've seen any platforms ever before. And you've got where Copilot might be a bit ahead on some features, Gemini there, then they switch, and then you've got ChatGPT, something else comes in. And what you realize is that there are people who will keep up with that. And we have set up the communities who really embrace that, share it, talk about it, and then trial it. You know, there are experimenters. And at the heart of that is our adoption team, which is the G-Cloud team, to kind of help fuel that, answer the questions around what the platform can do, can't do, what's in the roadmap, the products that are coming, just so people don't try and solve it all, you know, from different tools. We're there going, look, if it's coming in 3 months, just wait. Don't try and solve it with something else. And I think that user group is really good to get that excitement within the business and understand it. But the rest of the business can't run at that pace. And I think the employees there are kind of there going, there's a big group of the employees who are there going, please, can you assess all of this and pick out the 1 or 2 things that will really work for us? You know, and these are the topics that we are starting to build into our learning program. So we've got a level 1 in AI, which runs across all employees. level 2, which we've launched, is around specialist jobs like project manager, solution engineer, developer. And in these, we're there going, do you know what? We think everyone should be able to build a gem and focus it on their role. So let's give them the activities and make that part of the training. And that way they can invest the time in doing one thing, they can submit it, and then we do a competition, we share the best gems, and we allow people to copy and paste and put things together. So, you know, it's you've got to pause at times and really invest in doing something well. And, you know, we did the gem, and the Notebook LM is another one where we'd go, do you know what? I think that would be another very useful area that we embed into our training programs to go forward. But like Kieran said, pace of change is super fast. You've got to continuously refresh, and it's about how do you make sure that you understand what's there and you can use it and how you apply it to your business, but also how does that translate into people actually using it rather than just, you know, an elite few who are super enthusiastic. And that's one of the challenges that I think all organizations need to balance.
So I want to add, I'm going to switch sides of the fence here. Sorry, Simone. I'm going to switch to the Devo team implementation side and add to what Simon's just said, because just last week we had a fantastic use of the AI tools. So Notebook LM, thumbs up if you've used Notebook LM in the call. Just make sure you're all still there as well. Yes. Okay, lots of people have. Great. If you haven't, definitely take a look or reach out. We'll do a demo. But actually using that for sales enablement has been a huge piece. So you put in a new product. So Google throws new products at us all the time that we're deploying. So Agentspace is one of them. So in order for us to design our go-to market for Agentspace, we use a Notebook LM. We put it all into a notebook, do a summary, the important takeaways for a sales team, and then you give them the audio podcast. And you even give them the link just to the audio podcast that Notebook LM makes and say, here's your commute listening for some point this week. You are now fully versed in the new product that is in Devo team. And that's about actually, I don't have time to review this new product, to here's how you review the new product within the time you have. And that's super powerful because it affects their day-to-day working. So it's use cases like this that Simon's kind of referring to that are ideal snippets of information rather than blasting out, actually, here's everything you can do with AI, which it's just taken off quite well in Devo team. Sorry, I'll go back to being more of the host. Apologies.
No. And I think it's really important, but you touched on, you know, it's like teasing out those business use cases, you know, and you touched on something important, the sales role, because that's, you know, obviously important in our organization as a consulting company. And, you know, I can just speak for our own organization here in the Nordics. And one of those features that has been really valuable for our sales organization is just the fact that in Gmail, they're able to, you know, help me write. Often here where English is maybe not your first language, it's been an invaluable tool for our sales team to be able to use that. So,
or even if it's not your first language and you're just really bad at writing, like for me, for example, it's invaluable.
But also, yeah, and to touch again on that, you know, so we see some other customers as well who this has been just in general. And I know you also have some use cases around this, Pablo, but, you know, for the neurodiverse, you know, people as well in our organization and also customer organizations. This has also been a game changer. But maybe we can ask, because you've got so much advice and learnings to share, what advice would you give to other organizations, Kieran, who are considering doing an adoption program like this?
Yes, this is a fantastic question. I feel slightly nervous about giving any advice, but I think our initial rollout strategy was quite scattergunned. So, like, we'll just kind of like say it's here, and, you know, if you really want to use it, just sign up, and we'll give you a license and give you some, and go and tell us how you get on. I think that was probably a little too unstructured, but it got, you know, it changed, and we did it that way partly because we hadn't bought licenses for everybody at the start, but then later on that became like a mooty issue in January when Google changed and they adopted AI into Google Workspace by default. So that has really helped us. We no longer have to worry about who we roll out to. Everybody gets access. So, but I would say that it's probably in the adoption phase, it's probably a good idea to think about personas and think about those personas that will probably make the most use from the tool. And that's probably a good starting point for like getting the people to use the product really effectively. I'd say that was probably the one really big one. Do check, I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, just check to see what people are doing currently in your business on tools that you didn't roll out to them. And you'll find out that there's a massive amount of demand probably for these tools. So, that's one other thing, and also may help you direct where you want to sort of focus some of your efforts at. That's probably an important thing. And then, yeah, the final one, which I also alluded to, which is, yeah, embrace the enthusiasm. Like, everybody loves talking about AI in one format or another. It's a really, it's very exciting. Everybody wants to be involved with it. So you can embrace that. You can start to have special interest groups, sharing use cases, bring those use cases into kind of templates to some extent that people then can, follow and adopt and bring into their sort of work patterns. So that would be my kind of like 3 little mini tips of advice.
What about you, Simon? What's your advice?
So the first one really is around having a culture of learning and a safe environment to experiment. If people do see this as shadow IT, policies are scary. And if you don't have that environment and that mindset of learning, then people may learn, but there's no sharing of knowledge. So if you can create that, it really allows you to get excited about it and share it. Like Kieran said, you want to talk about it. We have something called AI conversations. It's even a module because we want to encourage it, just so you can learn from each other. So I think that's a huge one. And we went back to our values, to our mission, and said, look, let's make sure we do this right. The second one is do something. There are quite a lot of customers who I've spoken to who have got teams, have done a lot of investigations, and I go, okay, what have you done? And they haven't. And they're waiting for the right moment or the final polished article of something, whether it's a learning program or something else. And we're there going, that's maybe not the approach that we would recommend. It's more an MVP first, build something and get it out quickly, but also make sure you've got all the feedback loops in place so that you can quickly learn and adapt and build with them. And that way, you are actually changing your culture as well, because you're bringing everyone on this journey. I think the last one is the same as Kieran. Whatever you can do to build engagement and excitement. And to give you an example, our 1-hour Gemini training session that we gave to everyone, the goal of the session was to get everyone excited, not to train them on every single feature because we knew the product roadmap would change so quickly, but to get them leaving the session going, I need some of that in my daily tasks. That's going to help me. Now let me go and explore and see how to leave it with me. So a few handy hints to complement what Kieran said as well.
And I think they're fantastic. And as you say, it's kind of an iterative approach, really. You kind of have to, and the feedback loop is essential to kind of doing the continuous improvements. Pablo, I think we've got a few questions in the Q&A as well now.
Yeah.
So maybe we should jump there and we can...
Yeah, I've got two more questions, really quick ones, I promise. So one is, so we talked about the benefits that you've seen implementing AI. We did a little bit on ROI, which is more about the productivity and how people have time saved. Is there any other areas that maybe even unexpected or an example of benefits from AI? If not, I've also got one that I can fill in as well, but I would love to hear just a quick one from you guys. So Kieran, go ahead.
Yeah, so I suppose if we're talking specifically about sort of use cases, I guess, if that's what you're sort of honing in on, then yeah, I'd say that I've looked at the reports. So Gemini in Google Workspace, you get a report you can look at. And I looked at it today, and the most popular tools I think is Gemini, the Gemini chat client. So people are clearly using that a lot to sort of answer questions. And then Notebook LM is coming up quite a bit, and it's used quite a bit in Gmail. So I'm guessing it'll help you write and auto replies and those sort of things, which are the most popular. But those are sort of pretty good. But the ones that I've really liked to sort of hearing about, and specifically use cases, we created You can create customer persona gems. So we have, I mean, like any retailer, you have, customer segments, and you've described those segments in quite a lot of detail. Literally, you can just take and copy and paste that into a gem, and then ask the gem, and then give the gem a bit of and then actually Google Gemini will then improve your your setup so that it becomes like a good gem rather than a bad one. And then you can just essentially talk to your customer about what they may or may not like about your service and the products that you essentially think you're offering them, and that stuff like that. And that's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting idea. We do tone of voice checking. That was something that we've been experimenting with in the last week. So you have your brand, you have your sort of marketing brand guidelines, but okay, this is how you would respond to a customer and so on. So you can actually sort of check your responses against your tone of voice stuff, and that's really powerful. You can do any kind of stack ranking of some kind of submission based against a set of criteria. That's you can do that. Have obviously keep an eye on biases a little bit when you're doing that sort of stuff, but it is possible. Then RFPs and procurement is really useful for analyzing RFP responses. You can building out RFPs as well. I imagine it's probably used by vendors and to helping respond to RFPs, but it's a really powerful tool in that space. I personally use it for code assist. I don't get to do much coding these days. I was a coder. So every now and then, if I need to write scripts, I've forgotten every bit of syntax, so I use it in code assisting. And then I think my favorite one was one which I actually did recently, but it's quite common sort of use case, is in NotebookLM. I compared, I needed to review our encryption standards policy. And so I asked Deep Research to do some analysis on all the common frameworks like NIST, ISO 27001 and so on, and create a summary of encryption standards, based on recommended minimum levels of encryption standards, and then just did a comparison in NotebookLM between the results of that deep research with our policy, just to make sure that at least our policy was still up to date with what the frameworks were currently saying and so on. And that gave me some confidence. Then I could when I reviewed the policy in a bit more detail myself, I thought we're probably meeting the minimum levels we need to on those ones, and that was really good. I thought that was particularly powerful. That probably saved me 2 or 3 hours worth of work and could do it in 5 minutes. So yeah,
amazing. So I'm going to give you a second, because the next question is I want you to pick one of them as to which one was your favorite. Just a minute, but and I'll just ask Simon: is there any? So not specifically, maybe not specifically your favorite, but I'm talking maybe about neurodiversity or anything that you didn't realize would be a benefit in the business when we implemented AI.
I think it's not so much about that, but the one thing that we didn't realize was how much there was a want to both have the tools and have a training program, and how important that was for people's retention and engagement at the organization. So we ended up actually looking at it and going, by providing the tools, by providing a proper adoption and training program, which you have to do, I think, is my personal recommendation, we actually saw a 4% drop in overall attrition. Yeah, and this we were very surprised at, because then from that we learned that actually this is a really attractive proposition, that we're an organization providing this, and we use it for recruitment as well now. And so I know, Kieran, you covered a lot of the features and a lot of the capabilities, and you would have seen me nodding through nearly all of them, except Code Assist. I'm not quite there, but actually it's a real desire from the people. And if you're looking at your organization and you're looking at, what do your people want, we realized that this was really important to what they want from an organization, and that we measure now in terms of attrition with a significant drop.
That's amazing, and actually so clear. It's really nice to hear that there's clear numbers and the clear benefits listed there. So we are going to move on to Q&A in just a minute, but I also wanted to add that we've had another customer that's not in this call as well that we've done a proof of concept with, and their biggest impact was on neurodiversity. So people that were unable to take notes, writing them notes out and listen to the call, really leveling the playing field. That actually was one of their biggest takeaways, was how much it levels the playing field in the neurodiversity kind of area, which I think is super valuable. So I mentioned it here as well. It's something that we do actually record and measure as well in DevTeam's Gemini proof of concepts and adoption programs. So really good to hear the feedback, guys. I'm getting told we're running short on time. Hurry up, Pablo. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip over to the questions and answers that you guys have supplied. You can still ask them while we are answering the ones that are there. So please do go ahead, and you can thumbs up the ones that you want to hear the answers to. So let's go to the most popular. Right. So Simone, do you want to ask them, or shall I?
Go ahead. I can help you. So yeah, I mean, most popular. I think we have one from Justin. It says, we love Gemini in our company. Something that we struggle with is the privacy. It's never obvious in which tools our data is protected or is handled to Google for training. How can I make it 100% safe for our sensitive data?
So I'm actually going to ask Kieran to answer this one, and then also Simon, if that's okay, because there's very different approaches, I think.
Yeah, I think it's our use cases for AI Studio and new data science agent in Collab is relatively small, and so therefore it's the limited set of users we have of that. When we roll it out to them and we give it to them, we make it fairly clear that these aren't within the. Pablo's always mentioning this, by the way. You start using this, it's not within your Google Workspace kind of like protected environment. Some of this data could be used, so we're fairly conscious about which tools are within that Google Workspace sort of realm and which are not. And then so when we hand them out to users for trialing or whatever it is that they're doing, we make it fairly clear that, by the way, everything you do here is essentially can be used by Google in some way to train its models, and so therefore we use it appropriately. It's not something, I don't think it's not something that we've felt has been a big problem for us at the moment, but maybe that's just the nature of the kind of sort of business we are and the type of people that we've got using the product.
So from my perspective, training and awareness is obviously key and something we continue to do. But the other thing, we've got a knowledge management tool that sits behind the Google Workspace. And we've implemented effectively what Google call labels, but it's the confidentiality ratings. So you've got, you've got your highly confidential, restricted, secrets. We haven't got too many, but there's been a full adoption program to make sure that we're protecting the data in a way so that Google knows what it can use, can't use, which has given us a bit more confidence in terms of, okay, as long as I'm respecting the labeling and the privacy rules, which are super simple. So any document I open up, the first warning I get is, please give it a rating. That way I feel comfortable, and everyone at DevTeam can feel comfortable about knowing how that data is being used.
I'm going to add just a tiny bit to this as well, because it's a very important topic and everyone needs to be comfortable with the tools they're using. Otherwise, you don't progress. And this is a blanket statement that Gemini within Google Workspace does not train the public learning model. It does not take or remove your data out of your Google Workspace environment or the user's account. And it does not move data to process it as long as you're within the Google Workspace Gemini tools. If you're using other tools, then we don't recommend putting it out to your whole business. Do a controlled turn on for those, like AI Studio and any other alpha or non-core AI applications. So Justin, that's really important. Like Simon said, the training, making sure that everyone knows what services can be used safely and which ones are preview or alpha. Great. I'll quickly go to the next question then. This is from Hans. Hello, Kieran. What is the target audience within Ocado to use Gemini? Is it a select group of people or everyone? Also, what is a management decision, or was it a request by employees? There we go. To go.
Thanks for the question, Hans. I think I probably answered this question like in stuff that I said during the previous sort of 30 minutes. But the select, it wasn't to, initially it was to a select group, but only kind of by osmosis, mobile, and then sort of planned sort of process. And then it went to, and then we basically stepped up and just went to everybody, but then with a full kind of adoption process. So everybody was informed of like how the product would work, and we did a whole bunch of sort of workshops and other exercises and training activities so that they knew what was going on. It was, and to answer the second part of your question, definitely kind of a bit of both. clearly there was there is a strong desire amongst any management to kind of help their employees be as productive and effective as possible. And if you can see that there are tool sets that are likely to do this, then why, that's clearly something that could be a factor. It kind of helped that the price was very attractive. That makes management decisions a lot easier. That Google have, we were reasonably lucky with how we restructured our pricing with Google, but I had to, it may not be the same for everybody. But that was pretty useful for us. And but it was, yeah, absolutely was requested by employees. As I said, like by looking at what people were using on the day-to-day, in amongst the tools that we have given them, with the tools that we hadn't given them, you could tell that they really needed access to these things in order to do their jobs. In addition to that, there are new capabilities like deep research and whatever that weren't available in the past to employees. And we can sort of, when they learn about those, then they're desperate. That's when they're sort of, saying, yeah, we would really like to use that sort of tool. We could find that really, really useful. So it's yeah, that's how we do it.
Yeah, and I think Simon, you already alluded to, actually, we did a big piece on this, what the target audiences were in DevTeam. But do you want to just really high level answer the same question as well for DevTeam?
Yeah, we knew that we had to provide the tools for everyone, but we did take a staged approach. Effectively, the leadership went first. We did have trials for Copilot. We still use that in small parts of the business and other ones. But there was a point where, earlier this year, where we went, no, we need to be providing this to everyone and getting everyone on board. This isn't Google Gemini. This is our new ways of working. This is how we need to work in our daily job. And the things we've noticed now is anyone not using it is so obvious. Like once you've kind of built it up, and in the reporting, you can see it. You've got sort of power users and the one below. Anyone who are in those brackets, you kind of go, they've adopted it as an AI first mindset, i.e., this is my task I need to do. Stop. How do I do it with AI? Because every time I do it after this will be significantly quicker. Maybe quicker quality, things like this. But yeah, like even without, the pricing has changed as well over the course of this year, but the decision was made from the management that we can't afford to move forward without giving everyone this capability. And we turned it on for everyone, I think, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just going to jump in and ask a quick question there as well. So you talked about, the uptake saving time. Do you have any statistics you can share, Simon, on maybe time saving?
This is definitely live, Simone. Talk about putting him on the hot seat on a live session.
No, but I think this is something that, is really important. Other companies and customers want to know as well.
It's one of the biggest things. How do you calculate an ROI?
Yeah.
And we didn't want to calculate it from a business perspective. We wanted our employees to tell us what it is. And we've recently put it into our learning programs. And the first one came back from the sales and leaders. I'll quickly show this. I got it. No, I can't show it. But from the sales and leaders who are our executive board, our country managers, our key account managers, very, very senior people, we asked the question, what is the overall time saving you are getting from using Gemini across the whole workspace? And we put the brackets at 15 to 20%, which is noticeable, 20 to 30%, significant, and 30% plus, which we call transformative. As it stands today, we have over 40% of people responding, so their perception on the productivity, saying it's over significant, and a third are transformative. So, and I think 80 or 90% are showing a minimum of 15% notable. So we asked the question on productivity, and we are super surprised at this. This is really good productivity, and we feel we can trust it because it's from our colleagues who are sharing it. We did ask the same for quality, and we've got about 60% saying noticeable increase and above, and 30% saying it's significant. So it's it's good. People using it, and we put activities like the gem to use it to build their own gems. Early days on this, but we're seeing some very, very positive numbers come back on both productivity and quality.
That's amazing.
So we are running a little bit short on time. We've got 2 more questions. I've seen one on a functionality question and roadmap. I won't take that one just now. We can always answer that offline. I promise we'll go back to you. But just literally in 30 seconds, if any of you have a great example of using Gemini for blue collar workers, I know Simon probably not because of the type of business. Kieran, if you have it, just one quick example maybe.
The kind of things about, I'm not sure. Meet summaries we love. I don't know where that counts. Those are really, really useful. We find that's probably the most popular thing that we have. I don't know where that counts for blue collar workers, but
so and I can just give you a little flavor, which is that actually we found that using Gemini in Drive or in Mail for people on the go, because it's on the mobile as well, so you can use Gemini in the Gmail app, is really good to get information that's needed critically fast, but you don't exactly know what to search, to surface that for blue collar. So that was a really good example that we've seen before. Perfect. I'm going to hand over because we have just a small last announcement before we close up. Thank you very much for the questions, and thank you very much to the host for those really colorful, detailed answers for your experiences. So I'll hand over for a small summary there of what we've got lined up for you. Let's have a look. Who's taking that on? 1 second. Oops. Who's announcing that 30-day tool? Was it me? I think it might be me actually.
It is, but go ahead.
Welcome to live sessions. I've totally missed the boat on my bit.
So,
I won't say thank you. So, okay, what I'll do is I'll stop sharing because I don't think we've got a slide on it. But it is exciting, and it's only for you guys that have attended, which is really, really exciting. What we'd like you to do is, if you're interested, we have a small automated adoption service, which is relatively new from Devo team. So if you have enabled Gemini in your business and you're finding that users aren't quite understanding the capability or how to use it, and you want to push that adoption a little bit further, then you can sign up for an interest form, which we'll send out. And in that interest form, you will need to fill in a webhook for your chat space. So you make a chat space, you give us the webhook, and we will automatically push out tips and tricks on how to use Gemini in your business. And you can just add whoever you want to your from your business into that chat space. Unfortunately, it only works with chat. So if you're using Slack, I'm sorry. But if you are using chat and you want to push out some of these tips and tricks and how-tos to your business, that will last for 30 days from the first tip. And then hopefully your business will start to understand some of the great use cases they can use in Gemini, and then go from there. So if you are interested in that free special promotion for anyone who's in this call to enable that in your business, then fill out the feedback form. We will notify you once we've got you set up, and then that will start from the first tip that we send out. So really appreciative for joining, and for that you get that exclusive offer, and hopefully you guys have got lots of good information to go back to your business and say, how do we use AI? Can we turn it on now, please? If it's off, then why is it off? And if you do need any clarification on how to use some of those, please do reach out. I'm more than happy to talk about AI for a day, 2 days. Just put me in a room. I'll keep going, and enable your business on those services. Any last words, Simone and the team?
No, thank you so much, Kieran, for joining us today,
No
and thank you also, Simon, and thank you all who've dialed in. And we look forward to sharing the Gemini Learn Start 30-day trial with you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.